We're doing a show today about building your own flintlock pistol. Not. Tom Schrodt.
How do you do?
To throw folks off out there. We're not making homemade pistols. We're making flies.
That's right. That's what we're going to do.
I've been wanting to talk to you a long time. You wrote a book called Fly Fishing in Kentucky, and it's very comprehensive. It's got color pictures. It's got illustrations, and it tells about places to go, things to use, even how to fly fish. Tell us about the book first.
In this book, we have 36 different streams, tailwaters, and lakes that we have fished and caught fish in. So we tell you what kind of lures to use or what kind of flies to use, where to go, where to park your car, and a little bit about the ecology of these particular areas.
Does it tell you how to tie flies?
Doesn't tell you how to tie flies, but it does tell you which flies to use.
It is the fall harvest season. People are taking deer, people are getting ready to take some ducks, rabbits. To most people, that's the part of the bird, turkeys. There's so much stuff out there that you can use. Just, you mentioned a minute ago, before we got on camera, elk.
Elk.
Big old animal. Got a bunch of hair. But this little patch of hair right here can make how many?
Oh, you could tie 1,000 elk hair caddis with this. And we have lots of other games.
Yeah.
I mean, we have we fell our rabbits, so if you snip a little fur from their ears.
Wow.
And then we have turkey feathers, and then we have the tails, for example, from our deer. So we use those on our flies. So there's so many pieces of fur and feathers from our game that we can use tying flies.
We've got all this wonderful stuff here. You going to tie something for us today?
Well, I'm going to tie a fly that's called a woolly bugger. Now, woolly buggers,
and I believe this is one right here.
That's a woolly bugger right there. That's exactly right. Woolly buggers can mimic a number of different aquatic insects. So that's a very popular fly in Kentucky for both trout as well as smallmouth bass. I have here a number 6 underwater nymph hook here, and I've already put on a little bit of wire, and that weights it down a little bit so it gets down.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what we do is we start out and we put some wraps on here, and we wrap backwards, so we cover up our wrappings so it's kind of tight under there. And then what we do is we take a pair of scissors and we trim that off so it's covered up. And then what we do is we put a number of wraps on here like this, and we come all the way to the back. And when we get to the back, what we want to do is to take some marabou feather out, black marabou feather, and what we take is a small portion of this, and we trim it off a little bit. We want it to be just about the length of the shank of that there. But we tie this all down, come all the way back like this, and we have that tail. So the tail is on there. When you tie flies, the last thing to go on is the first thing you tie roughly. And then you basically work your way down, and the last thing that you put on was the first thing because it all folds over the top. One of the last things that you're going to put on is going to be a black saddle hackle. And you want to get one that when you fold this down a little bit like that and it sticks up, you don't want it to be too big. So you don't want it to stick up more than about half the length of the shank of that hook, okay? So what you're going to do is you take this and you tie this tail of this in. You want to get them tied in nice and tight because they get banged around out there in the streams and rivers. So that's tied in there. Now sometimes I tie it with olive color, but I'm going to tie this with black. And this is chenille. So we take a little piece of chenille and we tie the chenille in here. And after I got all this tied in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my thread up to the front because that's where I'm going to end off. up here in the front. Now the last thing I put on, as you remember, was the chenille. So what I'm going to do is I'll take this chenille and I'll wrap this around and bring it all the way up to the front carefully so I get them close together.
I'm checking what you're doing here. I'm looking at your already done one, so I see if I can guess your next step.
So I'll tie that off a little bit, good. Just flip it over there. Let that bobbin hang down like that. Then I take out a little device which we call hackle pliers.
Who?
Hackle pliers. These are called hackle pliers. So what I'm going to do, I'll trim this off a little bit because I'm not going to use all of it.
How do you, after doing this for so many years, keep your interest? I mean, a lot of folks, you know, they do something for so long and they quickly burn out. How have you kept your interest in this?
Well, I think one of the things, Tim, that's fun, there's nothing more fun than tying a fly and going out and catching a fish on the fly you tied. Now, I practice a lot of catch and release, but I have absolutely nothing against folks who want to keep their fish and go home and clean them and eat them. That's, to me, that's fine. That's good. Trout are awful good to eat, I tell you they are.
I had some last night.
See, did you? So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over the top of this, like that. Bring it around, okay, and tie these things down. Now, once I've got them in there like that, I can trim a lot of this off.
Fooling that fish is kind of cool because he's, you know, you're in his environment.
That's exactly right.
And you've put something in front of him that he managed to get in the side of his mouth because you took your time to do this.
So we tie this, putting a little head on this, like this. And then because we want that to be, we take a little device which we call a whip finisher. It's a really odd looking little device, but it's very effective. What this allows us to do is we grab that little line there, put it there, and now what we do is we tie this over, and this line is now tying back on itself. And we get done, we put a little head cement on there.
Well,
Flip that off of there. Trim that off. Now see if I put a little head cement on this.
oh yeah, we don't want to lose it.
Okay. And once that dries on top of that, that's on there, so good.
Now, how long can you expect a lure like this to last? Is that an all-day lure if things?
Oh man, that lure might last me 2 or 3 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You can catch 100 fish on that. Is that the done deal?
That's the done deal.
If I was a fish, I would eat that.
So,
Thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
welcome.